And now, here's this episode of Beyond the Books with your host, Alex Chong.
Today's forecast, mostly cloudy skies and 53 degrees. Perfect conditions for a podcast. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Books, where we go deep into the backgrounds and stories of our future healthcare heroes. Again, that means my name is Alex, and we have a very special guest today. Whether he is living on the East Coast or whether he's living in the Midwest, he has done some incredible things. So without further ado, let's bring in our guest. And here's our guest, Matt Zielinski. Matt, how are you?
Doing very well, Chong.
All right. How's your weekend been?
Good. Yeah, good. Finished up last rotation of third year, so just kind of relaxing a little bit, gearing up for the wedding, and yeah, all is well.
There we go. More on the wedding later in this podcast. But Matt, before we get into this episode, I have one question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
All right, we got one mission today. Our mission is that we're going to prove that you, Matt Zielinski, are more than just a medical student. How does that sound?
I think we can do that. I'd say I'm probably less of a medical student than some of all these other people that you've interviewed. But yeah, sure. Let's get after it.
All right, let's go to it then. So you were born in New York, and you grew up in the west side of New York, and then you actually moved to Montgomery, New Jersey, during your middle school and beginning of high school years. And one of my friends told me that you and him spent the summers working at various country clubs, tennis clubs, as a lifeguard and camps and those kind of things. And he remembers those as pretty memorable summers on the East Coast. What do you personally remember about those summers out in the East Coast?
Yeah, I mean, my guess is you must have reached out to Brian Friel, and he and I were pretty inseparable, growing up. So I would say he was pretty much a brother to me, and he still is. But yeah, I don't know. We worked at all different kinds of places. Cherry Valley Country Club was one of them that we spent a couple summers at. Cherry Valley, we worked at for a couple summers. Just trying to think. We also worked at Pretty Brick Tennis Club was another one.
Mm-hmm.
It was a pretty ritzy tennis club, and so they were. It's just kind of like old Princeton wealth, I guess, that worked there, and or that were members there. And Brian and I were lifeguards there, and then we also maintained like the tennis courts. And our boss Bill loved us because we were pretty handy dudes, and so we were always just fixing up different things that would needed to be maintained. Golf carts, all different kinds of things, working on just things that were around the tennis club. But
so is it true, Matt, that during I think it was one of your college years, you actually applied for a grant in Princeton so you could live on nearby on Mount Lucas Road, just so you could be able to work again as a lifeguard or as part of the country club during one of the summers?
Say that again. What was that?
So Brian told me that like you applied for a grant so you could stay at somewhere near Princeton University over the summer, and you were able to get that grant, and thus you're able to still work as one of those jobs during one of the summers.
Sure.
What can you tell me about that?
So I think he's probably mixing something up, but that summer that I lived on Mount Lucas Road was the summer that I worked for Special Olympics, or one of the summers I worked for Special Olympics. So for, I would say the majority of high school, we were just working different odd jobs, as lifeguards and stuff. Like we were just talking about Cherry Valley and then Pretty Brick Tennis Club. But then when I went to Holy Cross, I came back to Princeton, and that's when my parents kind of moved out to Indiana, and I worked for Special Olympics. So I had an apartment down, it was like, I don't know, a couple blocks off of Nassau Street, which is like the main strip in Princeton. So it's pretty sweet. But yeah, I don't know what grant he's talking about. I'm trying to think. They had a summer, there was a summer program where I was a coach for the Special Olympics, but I was also an intern on the TD Bank campaign. So one of the largest the largest, uh, what would you say? Like not contributor, but like not beneficiary either. The largest like donator, I would say, for Special Olympics along the whole Eastern Coast is law enforcement, so state police.
Oh,
And then the second one is TD Bank. So it was one of the sweetest summers I ever had, because I would just take I'd meet all these different incredible athletes, and then we'd go to all these different TD Bank branches across like the state of New Jersey and just say thank you, and like here, these are the athletes and this is what they were able to do. Some of them went to national games out in Los Angeles, California, and they were swimmers or gymnasts or bowlers. And then some of the other ones went to Athens, Greece, and competed in basketball or floor hockey or something like that. But I think that's probably what he's talking about.
yeah. So what was this? How did you fall into this TD Bank position? Like, what led you to it?
So there was a time when I was okay at hockey, and that was kind of my life. Yeah, that was kind of my whole everything that I would say consumed my everyday. And I got a pretty bad staph infection, which is
Oh,
part of the thing, or part of the reason, or like the appeal to medical school. So I got a bad staph infection anyway, and I almost lost my leg, and thankfully I didn't. But after I got surgery, they had asked me, my confirmation sponsor in high school, um, Janine Leppert, she worked for Special Olympics New Jersey, and she said, "Hey, obviously she came and visited me in the hospital and stuff, and she's like, hey, I don't know what your plans are, for the next, couple years, and if you're going to try to still play hockey in college and X and Y and Z, but I would encourage you to check out Special Olympics. I think they've got a similar mission statement to what you've kind of experienced, and so I hockey was everything that I associated myself with, and then it just completely got stripped from me. So then I went to Special Olympics and volunteered, and it was like the coolest thing on the planet. It completely it broke down every barrier I think that I had like previously. Um, and it didn't matter if the kid had Down syndrome, or they were autistic, or they were white, or they were black or Asian. Doesn't matter. If Tommy could shoot the jump shot or the three, the ball was going to him. It wasn't going to me. I can't play basketball. But it went to him. And yeah, it was sweet. Special Olympics has always got it will always have a special place in my heart, because I would say that kind of redirected me for all of the better reasons.
yeah. And I actually have more about your hockey years and the time you worked in Special Olympics as well. But before we
Okay,
get to that, I'm just curious, as someone who's lived extensively both on the East Coast and in the Midwest,
sure.
you know how like regions of the US, people say that like the stereotypes of the East Coast, stereotype, blah, blah, blah. Do
Yeah.
you find big differences when you live in the East Coast and the Midwest? Or are they more similar than most people might think?
No, I think that's a very valid question. And I have this conversation, I would say, I have this conversation with people more often than not. And my assessment, or like what I would say is, I love the East Coast. I've got a lot of friends and family that are still living out there. My sister's living out there, a lot of my really good childhood friends, a lot of my college buddies, a lot of people that are going to be at our wedding. Um, but one of the biggest differences, I would say, is the East. If you're living on the East Coast, everybody in like New York or Boston, and this might be a little bit of a stereotype, but like there's a lot of really good people, a lot of great people. Everybody works really hard, but I think that the goal is more focused on like people's, like their own success. They're not as focused on like other people's success. So the thing that's special about Indiana, I can't speak to other, Midwest states because I haven't really lived in them, but I would say one of the things that's so special about Indiana, or at least in my experiences, are um, people work really hard in Indiana, and they're also willing to help you out if you kind of need some direction, or you're trying to get to the next step, but you don't know who to talk to, or you don't know where to go from here, you don't know where to go from there. So um, yeah, I would say that that's probably the biggest difference. It's like people are just focused more on themselves on the East Coast, I would say, and in the Midwest, I really like the like collectivity of willing to help others, I guess. So
Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
Um, have you ever considered like let's say you're all settled, life's good, everything's great.
Yeah.
Have you ever considered going out west and living there for a little bit, or do you think the Midwest or the East Coast is forever home for you?
I'd say that's the $1,000,000 question, Chong. Um, if you told me that I would go to med school in Indiana, I would tell you you're crazy.
Mhm.
And if you told me that I was going to like find a wife or find a girlfriend and then, fall in love with her and then marry a girl from Indiana, I would also say you're crazy. And then if you told me that I would potentially live in Indiana, I would say there's no chance. But I couldn't be happier with all of those things. So your question is, would I go out west? I would love to. But I think that's a conversation that Emily and I need to have, and that conversation's coming with residency, and she's here for obviously a couple more years, and just makes things a little difficult. But I love going different places and just kind of figuring it out. So I'd love to go west. I think Salt Lake City. I mean, I've traveled out there a bunch, but Salt Lake City or Colorado, California is a little interesting. I don't know if I'd want to live there. It's really expensive, and some of those people are a little crazy, but Utah, Montana. I don't think Emily would fly with Montana or Idaho, but I'd love to go out there. It'd be sweet.
All right, Matt. We've touched a little bit on your athletic success. Obviously, you've done a little bit of tennis. I heard you about your successes in baseball, including when you took some time off and just hopped on the baseball team and hit like a 500 batting average or something crazy like that. But the sport I really want to key on is what we talked about earlier, and it's a great sport of hockey because it's been a big
Okay.
part of your life,
Yeah.
especially during your childhood. So
Yeah.
I'll just kind of start wide here. What got you so much into the sport of hockey when you were younger?
Huh. I started when I was 3, but I don't
Oh
know.
my
I can't.
goodness.
Yeah, I can't say that there was like Fredonia State is the first place that I ever skated at. It's in upstate New York, just south of Buffalo in Fredonia. But it's one of the SUNY schools, and so I started skating there. I think my parents brought me there just to do like I don't know, just a free skate or something like that. And I was pushing a chair, just to start, and then by the end of it, like I wasn't pushing a chair, and I just picked it up kind of quick, and I loved it. And then my parents were like, "Hey, maybe we should try to play, like put them on a hockey team." So then I started playing hockey, and yeah, I don't. The upstate New York's got it's a pretty big hockey community, so I started playing with the junior Sabres at the time. It was like the travel team that was kind of local, and obviously the Buffalo Sabres. So yeah, it was cool. We played in a bunch of different hockey tournaments, and it was a it was always something that I did. And I think I loved hockey because it was just so fast paced. And like the camaraderie with all your buddies, and it was very easy to make friends and just kind of grow up playing hockey. And then you were talking about baseball, but I love baseball too because you go into the springtime, weather gets nice out, and you just go out and shag some flies and throw some batting practice, and I don't know, take some grounders. So I loved hockey because it was so fast, and I think I loved baseball because it was so much slower than hockey. So I really appreciated both. But yeah, the answer to your first question is hockey's a huge thing up in upstate New York. So I just got involved in it at a young age, and I think I just kept playing. So,
And not only were you playing, you were pretty good at it too. So you first played at Montgomery High School, Go Cougars. And then, in fact, you actually, when you're terrorizing ice rinks in Somerset County, you were so good that I think you got recruited by a pretty nice school called the Williston Northampton School in Massachusetts. And you went there for hockey. What was it like? You're midway through your high school career, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, there's this opportunity for you here to go play hockey in the school. What was that like for you?
yeah. Hey, stop barking, Maverick. Hey, Emily, can you call him? Sorry, Charlie.
You're good.
Yeah. So, um, all of my buds were in Montgomery, and there was a guy, Kevin Moore. He was a hockey goalie, and he said that, I think we got to go out and play boarding school hockey if you want to kind of take it to the next level. So he was a couple years ahead of me. He was in my sister's class. And so he went off to boarding school and did that. And then he always just tried to convince me. He's like, hey, man, you're good enough and you should think about pursuing, like hockey and boarding school. So I applied to a couple different schools, and Williston was interesting because that's where he went. And so I went up there, interviewed, and talked to the coach and stuff. And at the time that I was like hearing back from these schools, I got into Williston, and then all of a sudden I had that staph infection. And on the one hand, I've got the orthopedic surgeons in Princeton telling me that I'm going to lose my leg and I'm never going to play hockey again, ever. And then I've got, Coach Derek Cunha over here in Springfield, Mass, telling me that can't wait to have me, in the fall. So it was kind of interesting. It was a pretty interesting time. I came out of the hospital with my leg, thankfully.
Yeah.
And then the real question was, do I still go to boarding school or not? And do I still go, pursue this like hockey dream / kind of figuring out like what I want to do with my life. And so I decided, my dad is an engineer, and he fixed up a pretty cool skate for me that took like all the pressure off of my ankle so that I could still skate. I didn't have the same agility, and I couldn't play as well as I could prior. But anyway, I decided to still pursue it, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Boarding school was incredible. Yeah, there you go, Williston.
There you go.
Wildcats, baby.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you were a defenseman for pretty much your whole hockey career. Is that correct?
Yeah.
All right. But one of your teammates told me that something you were pretty good at was something called like an end-to-end goal, which I have a limited amount of hockey experience, but kind of how I understand is like you're a defenseman, right? So like people would
Yeah.
think that you just kind of stand near the goal and kind of be like the person before the goalie has to stop the puck. But
Yeah.
something that people told me you were good at is that not only did you make sure that the puck doesn't go anywhere near the goal, you actually took it upon yourself to, since there's an open opportunity, to go score a goal yourself on the other end. My question for you though is, when does a player know that there's a good opportunity here? Because as you said before, hockey is such a fast game. You kind of have to make a snap decision of where to hold back, keep a good defense, or where to go offense and go really hard and try to score. How did you know in your head, like what were some key things to like quickly look out for when trying to make that decision?
Yeah, that's a good question. Hockey's a game of like open space. I mean, just kind of like soccer, and I'd say lacrosse too, like most other sports, football as well. So, the more open space you can get into and the faster you can get into that open space, the better off you'll be. So for hockey, if you see like, open space in hockey and you're fast enough to get to those gaps or get to those places, um, you're, like the world is your oyster. You can kind of do whatever it is that you want to do with the puck. So if you're comfortable enough handling the puck and you're fast enough to get into that open space and no one can get the puck away from you, then it's kind of a recipe for success. So I was very fortunate that, like, I don't know, I think it was just I had longer legs so I could skate a little quicker. And so I don't know, my favorite thing was taking the puck away from the other team, like you were talking about, in the defensive zone, then skating it up. Sometimes we call it like rushing the puck, and bring it up to the forwards and then dish it off to them. I always had more satisfaction passing it off to the forwards and having those guys go like, crossbar down or, some sweet goal. Um, I didn't I was a pretty selfless or yeah, selfless player. There's some like defensemen that are a little not selfish, but you could take the puck up and you could try scoring yourself. And if you've got four other guys out there and they're just open and they're like, "Hey man, how come you're not passing the puck to me?" It doesn't look particularly good. So I would say the craft that I kind of tried to improve upon and was probably one of my stronger talents was I could skate quickly, and then I'd go into the open space in the offensive zone, and all of their players would try to come to me and get the puck away from me, and then it would open up guys like you on the other side of the ice. I'd pass it to you, and then you'd go crossbar down or backdoor goal or something like that. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. And let's say you couldn't be a defenseman for like 1 or 2 games for whatever reason. Is
Mhm.
there another position that you would love to play besides defenseman when you get to play hockey?
Yeah, that's a good question. I love defense because you're involved in every play. And so as a defenseman, you could play a little bit of goalie if you're fast enough. Like you could take the puck up, like we were just talking about, into the offensive zone, and you could play a little forward. And then, of course, you're a defenseman by default, so you're playing defense. So you get to play all three positions. Like you can block the puck, you can, skate the puck up, or you can just try to take the puck away from the other guys. As a forward, which is probably the answer to your question, I've played forward a couple times. I enjoy it, but I don't enjoy it as much as playing defense because you don't have the same, like you can't play all the positions. Like there's certain things you're further up in the neutral zone in the offensive zone, so you don't get a chance to like, play defense, and you don't get a chance to really play goalie as well. So if I had to, I would probably play center, but
Okay,
I much prefer playing defense just because you get to do it
defense.
all.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it makes total sense. You spoke earlier of trying to be a selfless teammate for your guys and your team here. I actually
Hmm.
spoke to one of your ex-teammates, a guy named Justin Alejandro. I'm
Yeah,
sure you
just
remember him. And
yeah.
he said something. I asked him like, "Hey, what was Matt like as a teammate, and what was Matt like off the ice as well?" And I'll show you the quote, the text that he sent me because I think it was really really sweet. So I'll put it on the screen, but I'll also read it out for those listening on Spotify as well.
Okay.
So let me pull up the quote here and I'll let you read it here. So Justin had to say about Matt, quote, he was one of the best teammates I ever had, which is why we became such great friends to this day. He truly cared about everyone on the team and in the community. He was willing to help anyone, whether it be with schoolwork or teaching them a sport or skill. Even if he was extremely busy and had his own work to do, he would put it aside to help everyone and then spend the extra time to make sure his work was complete. So what was it like having the guys on a team, and what's your reaction to this quote that Justin had to say for you?
Yeah. I mean, just and I kind of go way back. Um, we met at Williston, and we actually met. Yeah, at Williston. In most boarding schools, you have to play three sports. So I
Oh
met
wow.
Justin. Yeah. So we both tried out for the soccer team, and we didn't know anybody. So we both made the team. We kind of always joke because he denies this, but uh, I remember when we went for preseason for soccer, it was pretty toasty out there, and Justin comes up to me and he's like, "Hey man, like what's going on? What's your deal? Where are you from?" And so we introduce ourselves, and he says to me, "I don't think we're gonna have any trouble making this soccer team." And it kind of it kind of caught me off guard. I still give him a lot of shit to this day about it because it just I was those words would never come out of my mouth, but I think I appreciated it so much, and I gave him such a hard time. I still give him a hard time to this day about it. That we just laugh about it. But yeah, I mean, just he's an incredible guy. He has been there for all the good things and all the bad things. I would say the things that I've gone through in my kind of life up to this point. He's always been there. If I told him, hey man, like I need you to be out here tomorrow at 3 p.m. and he wouldn't ask any questions. He'd say, all right, I'll book the next flight out. And I think that kind of goes back to what he says in his text here, which is you know we became such good friends just because of the camaraderie and mutual respect and willing to help one another. I think you're not gonna learn all of those things in like patience and kindness and um, like love for your teammates and stuff like that. Like you're not going to get that anywhere else. Well, you could, I guess, but that's you get it in sports,
Hmm.
And so that's hockey was such an important part of my life because I built all of these relationships with all these amazing guys that I otherwise would not have known. And so you meet these people and you kind of find out where they come from and what their backgrounds are, and you I don't know, you kind of do your schoolwork with them on, off the ice, and then when you get on the ice, it doesn't matter if flunk the test or whatnot. It's just you're trying to win one for the team, So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, Justin and I had many. So I was a proctor in boarding school, which is like a RA. I don't know if you mentioned this,
No, he
but
did it.
yeah, so it was a pretty sweet gig at Williston. It seems so stupid now, but like if you achieved like high enough grades and you were, I guess, a responsible part of the community at Williston, you could be a proctor. So I applied for these three different positions at Williston. One of them was, and it kind of, I'm sure he didn't tell you this story, but I'll tell you this story about the
Go for it.
disciplinary committee.
Yes, go
So
for it.
there are three positions that I applied for. One of them was a proctor of the dorm. One of them was to be a one of the two students in each grade that is on the disciplinary committee, and then the other one was to be like the what do they call it? You're like the director for the local Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And so I applied to these three positions because I'm like, man, I got all this time. I'm still playing sports and stuff, but like as a boarding student, you're there all day every day, so it's like if you're not doing schoolwork and you're not doing sports, then like you got all kinds of time. And that was the best part about boarding school. Like you get involved in things that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten involved in. So I loved it. And as it kind of turned out, I uh all three of those positions I was like accepted to. So then in boarding, or like if you were a proctor, you could live by yourself, and you could also have a couch, and you could also have a fridge,
Oh,
and
wow.
you could have like a TV and whatnot. So, and you could close your door during study hall. Anyway, so we had study hall every night from 8 to 10. And so I would go in and, check on all the boys. I mean, they were all the hockey guys.
Oh,
So
okay.
they're like my teammates, I'd be
Uh-huh.
going around. Hey, Chong, you doing your math homework? All right, sweet, dude. Just make sure you don't freaking bomb the test. I don't want Cunha to rip me a new butthole tomorrow. So, yeah, being a proctor in the dorm was sweet. And these guys kind of knew that I was tight with all the guys. So
Mhm.
it was a cool relationship, like
Yeah.
if you if you had the guys trust, and like I knew that they wanted to do well academically and in hockey, that like I would just say, hey, Chong, get your stuff done tonight so that we can go play tomorrow, and you don't have to, you don't have to skip the game or whatnot. But Justin's funny because that year that I was the proctor, I would always let him just like do whatever he wanted to do, along with many of the other guys.
Mhm.
And then he would he'd come up to my room along with a couple of the other guys, and we would just crank tunes on these Bose speakers that I had. And we'd probably do homework and, play video games till, 2 or 3 in the morning. And those were probably some of the best like memories that I have of boarding school, because it was just sweet hanging out with those guys. And I built a pretty strong bond with Justin. He's a really good dude. I'll be friends with him forever.
That's
But
awesome, man. And I think what it really speaks to is just how great sports are beyond just what goes on the field. I mean, yeah, the numbers are
100%.
nice, the statistics are nice, but those numbers and statistics only stay in like those years, you know. But kind
Yeah.
of as you alluded to, the friendships, the bonds, the memories, those last forever. Those really do last forever.
Communication, and I think that's, we'll probably get to this as we transition into like medical school. But, you know, I think one of the things that makes me a little different than some of these other med students that we're in school with is that like I don't mind having great conversations, and I don't mind having difficult conversations with team members or with patients,
Mhm.
and those conversations are sometimes awkward if you have to like, break some bad news about someone's health or, whatever. So, but it all comes back to sports, like I wouldn't have known how to do all of those things or have those conversations or deliver bad news had I not said to Justin, dude, I can't believe you just told me that we're going to have no problem making this freaking soccer team. I'm terrible at soccer. So are you. We're going to be lucky if we make this team. But yeah, so
Oh man. All right. So speaking of being a little bit different, there's another thing that makes you different from all of the generation Y, Zs, whatever we are. And it's the fact that you don't really have much of a social media presence, which
Yeah.
makes my job harder. But thankfully, I had great people like Justin and Brian to help me out here. I did find one old photo that one of your friends was able to pull up for me. So I just
Okay.
first want a quick reaction to this photo, and I kind of want to ask more about the lack of social media afterwards. So
Sure.
let me just show you the photo first. I think this was pretty good. That
Holy
I
Sheba.
know. Yeah. What do you remember about this day? I think this was graduation day, was it?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my Atlanta. Yeah,
That
that's
hair mat.
yeah, that's incredible.
Yes. Yes.
Graduation at Williston. Yeah, Justin looks pretty similar. I would say I look a little different, but um yeah, that was graduation, obviously at Williston.
Mhm.
And it was a pretty small class. Like from Montgomery, where I was at, it was like 450, I think, a class. But when I went to Williston, we graduated. I think there was like 95 of us, so it was much smaller, and you get to know everybody in the classroom. But also back there, I can't remember the chicks' names. I know that was Hannah, but at the time I was dating this other girl, and those were her friends. And
Gotcha.
I just
Okay.
introduced them to Justin, and one of them was into Just, so it's pretty funny.
All
Yeah,
right,
that's a
Matt.
good pick.
Yeah, good throwback. But I kind of want to ask you because, like, like it's different. Like a lot of most of us in our generation per se are really up almost to obsession, like just really into social media.
Yeah,
You've kind of chosen a different path where you really don't have any of these accounts. Um, it even's to the point where Emily, your current your fiance, when she was
mm,
trying to like get to know who you were when she first met you, she couldn't find anything online to really go off of. So
yeah.
I kind of want to ask you, like, what drew you to not having as much of an online presence as a lot of the rest of us generation people do? And
Yeah.
yeah, I just kind of want to hear more about that.
So I think social media is great if you want to stay in touch with people that you can't see, and you can't like go visit. If you can't go to, like I have a friend, Constantine Blecker. He was my roommate in boarding school. He's from Germany. I can't just go visit Constantine on a Friday or something like that. So I would say social media is great for keeping in touch with people that you wouldn't ordinarily be able to keep in touch with. I think social media, if used like to such a large extent that it becomes problematic, and I think it's one of the things that is like wrong with our society right now is we put too much emphasis on all this stuff. It's like if you can see somebody like Kim Kardashian buy a $200,000 car, now everybody has to buy a $200,000 car, and like you're not successful if you don't have that $200,000 car, or you don't have that $5 million home, or whatever the case may be. So
Mhm.
I think it's unfortunate. I don't know. So I have always just stayed away from it because I'm not
Mhm.
a very like materialistic person, and so I also would say that I like being like in the here and the now, like with whatever company I'm kind of with. And so if you're on your phone and you're constantly scrolling through Instagram, and you're not giving that person that you're with your undivided attention, well, that sucks. That sends a message to Chong, well, hey dude, this podcast is great, but I'm going to keep scrolling through Instagram and view all of my followers and see if I can get more likes and stuff. I don't know. I think it's a good tool, but I think it's unfortunate that it's gone too far, and now it's to some people's detriment, where their focus is not on the right things, at least in my opinion. And you lose the you lose the ability to form those friendships. Like we were just talking about Justin and how amazing he is, and Friel and how amazing that dude is. And if you have social media, and you like my sister she loves social media. I mean, she probably puts up, when she brushes her teeth, and then when she, bakes a cake, whatever. I mean, it's
Mhm.
everything, right? It's like 5 posts a day or something like that. I love my sister, but um, I just think it could go too far, and it becomes detrimental to that person if that's your only focus. You know what I mean? It's like, man, I think of Simon Sinek a lot, and because he talks about this stuff, and like the little burst of dopamine that you get when you get, a like, or you get, a couple new followers or whatever. And it's that's social media, like it's the same reward system as, you know, drinking a beer or gambling or, you know, doing drugs or whatnot. And I just don't think we have any, like, I don't know, there's no like restrictions on it. And I think we need to, you know,
Mhm.
because it's manifesting as we are a society that can no longer talk to one another, you know. It's like
No.
we talk to one another through emojis and like text messages, which I get. There's obviously like a need to have a text message sent out, or, you know, it's sweet to use an emoji or something like that. But how about those conversations that you need to have that says, "Hey, Chong, I heard your mom's got, you know, stage 4 glioblastoma. Hey, how's she doing? You know, can you tell me a little bit more about it?"
Mhm.
Other than like, "Hey, dude, I saw your post. Hope everything's going well." You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't think it's terrible, but I think if used in excess, just like anything else, it can be detrimental, you know?
No, I think you
But
brought up a lot of good points. I mean, younger me used to be obsessed with like, what time do I post my picture? Do I have
yeah,
the right filter on? Are more
yeah,
people going to be able to see this? And yeah, I think it can definitely get to a point of obsession. And on top of that, too, it can really wreck your mental health if you really get to, yeah.
100%, 100%,
Hmm.
100%. If you see somebody that's got 5,000 friends and you only have 400, you're like, man, what am I doing wrong? Do people not like me? You know what I mean? It's like, no, people just, you're not that important. You
Yeah.
know, like,
Yeah.
come on. It's like, get over yourself. Go out and like go, I don't know, go volunteer at the church or go play sport or whatever. Go somewhere else where I promise you you could, you know, develop a friendship or, you know, a friend base that would be much, much stronger than any social media follower or like friend that you're gonna have. I don't know. So
Yeah.
I
So,
probably have a really jaded view on the whole thing, but anyway, go ahead.
no, I think you brought up like good points. I think you and I would both agree, like, keep it in moderation. Your worth is
Yeah,
not valued on a like or
hundred
whatever,
percent.
or a comment or whatever.
100%.
Everything is better in moderation for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt.
So,
Absolutely.
kind of want to switch gears to, you mentioned volunteering.
Okay.
And so during your time at Holy Cross College, you were pretty
Hmm.
involved with something called Holy Cross Goes Unified, which I
Yep.
believe is associated with Special Olympics. So why don't you
Yeah.
first tell me, like, what was Holy Cross Goes Unified and what led you to volunteer in this kind of area?
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to what you were asking me before when Friel told you about that summer that I spent in New Jersey, um, working for Special Olympics. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, these are the picks. So I don't know, man. Like I had a blast in New Jersey, you know, working for this summer for Special Olympics. It was incredible, right? I got to meet all these different athletes in New Jersey. Everybody was celebrated. You know, it was just a big party. Everybody was happy. You know, your morale gets boosted. Everybody's having a great time. And then I came back to Holy Cross, pretty good Catholic school, and I'm like, oh, surely they'll have like a Special Olympics, you know, team or a Special Olympics club or something like that. And so, yeah, I went back to Holy Cross, and much to my surprise, they didn't. And so I kind of took it upon myself to just start a program. And so we called it, one of the things in Special Olympics are unified sports. And unified sports, the goal is to take a handful of athletes who don't have an intellectual disability, and then a handful of athletes that do have an intellectual disability, combine them, put them together, put them on the same field, and just play sports, right? So they have unified basketball, they got unified soccer, they've got pretty much any other sport that they have, unified bocce, unified bowling, so any sport that Special Olympics has, they also have these unified teams, which are incredible. So I wanted to do that exact same thing at Holy Cross, and so I had a couple buddies that I met at Holy Cross that could kind of help me along with this thing, and that's what we did. So when I went back my sophomore year, after I had that sweet that summer of freshman year, after freshman year at Special Olympics New Jersey, I came back sophomore year and we started this, and so we linked up with Special Olympics Massachusetts, and we found some pretty amazing families and parents and kids and athletes and stuff. And man, it was awesome. It spread like wildfire on the Holy Cross campus, and there were kids. I would say this was probably one of my goals, and it I didn't know it at the time, but when I, you know, kind of left Holy Cross and towards, you know, the last couple of days and weeks at Holy Cross, I reflected back and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. There were a couple guys like this guy right here. in the blue shirt,
Mm-hmm.
Tommy, he worked in the dining hall. And Tommy, Tommy was, kind of just a general dishwasher, cleaning up plates, stacking cups, making things, making sure the salad bar was completely full, and they had all just a cafeteria guy. So when I first met Tommy, when I was there freshman year, he was always just kind of stuck in the back, and not many people talked to him. And towards the end of my 4 years at Holy Cross, Tommy was like the man. We got these unified jerseys, and everybody on the campus knew him. And it wasn't just what was cool about it is you can see some of them, like that dude. I don't remember his name, but the guy like straight ahead, all the way in the back, that's
Mm-hmm.
actually wearing soccer shorts and soccer socks.
Mm-hmm.
I asked the Holy Cross, like the Division I soccer guys and girls, and then I asked the Division I basketball teams, guys and girls, if they would do unified with us. So here you have these amazing Division I, athletes that are playing along with these kids that are never going to get the opportunity to go to college. And it completely turned, their, like, some of these athletes, it completely turned their, demeanor around, and like
Mm-hmm.
it broke them out of their shell, and they're like,
Mm-hmm.
holy smokes, I'm going to Holy Cross for college. You know what I mean? So at the end of the 4 years, Tommy was then wearing his unified jersey around town, and everyone knew who he was,
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, it was a pretty cool, I don't know if I would have gotten the same response had I gone to a different college, but Holy Cross was great just because everybody was looking to, volunteer and join, a an organization or something. And so I think just that simple fact, combined with the fact that the mission statement was just to play sports on Sunday nights,
Mhm.
was great. And Holy Cross really embraced it, which was awesome.
So a question I want to ask you about this is that
Yeah.
obviously the impact on the students who are doing this, athletes who are doing this are a huge, right? Like you're giving them time to be themselves, you're teaching them some skills with the sport, etc. But I kind of
hmm
want to turn around. What did these athletes and students teach you during your time at Special Olympics?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question. Something I used to think about very, very much, and sometimes I still do. I think you can appreciate this when you're taking some of these exams, or you got these awful nights where you don't want to study, or you've got these extended periods of time where you're just grinding it out, trying to crank through to finish these, board exams or whatnot. Everybody hits a road, and they're like, I don't want to study anymore. This sucks. I don't know why I'm doing this. Why did I decide to go to med school? This is terrible. And you think back to those experiences where you're like, man, if only, you know, I just gave it a little bit more, or like I'm doing it for Tommy, or I'm doing it for Kelly, or I'm doing it for any one of these athletes that will never have the opportunity to be in the same shoes that I am. And so, like, it was all the same stuff that I kind of learned in hockey. It just get reinforced, just on a different playing field. Patience, love, kindness, camaraderie, learning how to effectively communicate with people. And I would say one of the things that was distinctly different about how I interacted with the athletes, and even now, like there's patients that I see who have disabilities in the hospital, and it's the same deal. Like I treat them the same way. I can tell you from experience that none of these athletes ever want to be like talked down to, or they don't want to, like, they don't want them to, like, be sympathized with, or they don't want to, like, speak in very simple terms, like, because besides the fact that, like, I don't know, they might, have certain physical abnormalities, or, they might be, uh, a little slower to solve a quadratic equation. I mean, these athletes are incredible. There was this dude, Steve Austin. He was autistic when he worked at Special Olympics, and I got to know him. And this dude memorized the train schedules on the NJ Transit.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I would get done at work and go into New York City, on a weekend or something. And he'd be like, Matt, you got to get out of here, man. There's a 5:34 and it's an express train. It'll take 69 minutes to get into New York Penn Station. And I'm like, oh, dude, I'm not going to be able to make it. Steve, what's the next one? He's like, well, after the, 6:34, there's a a 7:03, but it's not an express train. It's going to take you a little bit longer. So
Oh, wow.
I guess my point is all of these athletes have different skills, and they're bringing different things to the table, um, which is what makes a team a great team, and just a society a great society. If you can celebrate those gifts and you can recognize those gifts in some of these athletes, which is pretty much all we did, it's amazing. So I would say it just reinforced a lot of the things that I had learned in other sports before, but obviously working with this particular population is pretty special. And man, all they want to do is have fun,
Mhm.
and it's an incredible organization. Especially, I'll work in some capacity with or for Special Olympics for the rest of my life, because I think in some aspects of my life it completely saved me.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of goes both ways, like, right? So there was like a real need for something like this
Yeah,
at the Holy Cross community. And um, thanks to you and the other guys who were part of this project, you guys were able to fill that need. And
yeah.
it seems like it worked as a two-way street, right? Because obviously had a big impact on you. I'm sure it had a big impact on the other volunteers there. You mentioned the
Hmm.
athletes who were there. So really, really cool saying that that happened at Holy Cross. So really, really cool saying. All right, so I want to skip ahead a little bit because I
Okay.
definitely want to make sure we fit this part of your story in the interview, and that is your
Okay.
most recent trip that you and Emily had in Europe.
Okay.
And obviously, there's one big event that happened that we will get to. It's just a slightly big event there. But
Yeah.
I want to warm up with this question though. Which was more of a transportation challenge for you and Emily? Was it driving a small car through the hills of Ireland to get to the cliffs of Moher? Or was it riding a tiny motorcycle with both of you on it in the middle of Italy? Which one was more of a challenge, would you say?
Oh man. Uh, I would say driving a small car where the steering wheel is on the other side of the car was more challenging for me, and I thought that I was going to kill us in Ireland.
Uh-huh.
Um, Man, taking a left turn on it's awful. It's terrible. And taking a right, it
Look at
was
this
awful.
car,
Yeah.
man.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. Yeah, I would say that the driving that car was more challenging for me, and I would say driving the moped, down to like Palermo and the Amalfi Coast
Mhm.
was a bigger challenge for Emily, because she was on the back, and when I had proposed, hey, let's get a little motorcycle and let's rip it down to Palermo or the Amalfi Coast. She was like, I don't know about that, but I guess we could go check it out. So we went and checked it out, and I told her, whatever you do, don't lean against me, just lean with me. Obviously, what do you think she does for the first? Yeah, oh man, oh, it was terrible. It was awful. You can't appreciate it, but and I know some of the people that will listen to this who have been here will know, but
Mhm.
those cliffs, dude, it drops down like 300 feet. It's crazy, and the roads are pretty tiny and whatnot. But anyway, this was on the way back up, so Emily was pretty happy, and but going down, she was crying,
Oh.
and yeah, oh, it was awful. Every single turn that we took, she would lean the opposite way, the total opposite of
Oh,
what
so
I
now with
asked.
because she probably saw it was like, equalize it out, but that's technically what you're not supposed to do, right?
Precisely, yeah.
Yeah.
So here I was thinking, we were going to be a-okay, and literally every turn she was turning against me. But then on the way back up, I think she kind of understood, and she realized that we weren't going to die, and
Mhm.
if she leaned with me, everything would be much better. And then she was a champ, and she crushed it, and it worked out a lot better. So, but yeah, both of those, man, those were both great experiences. Those were pretty funny.
Yeah, absolutely. What were the clips of Moors like? Because I know you guys had somewhat of a limited time because you're trying to fit
Yeah,
this in a day. But what
yeah,
was it
no doubt.
like? What was it like once you conquered the red car? You finally got there, no
Yeah.
accidents, and everything turned out great. What did it feel like when you finally got there?
Oh man, it was beautiful. Probably one of the most beautiful. Yeah, exactly. My hair looks a little questionable in that. I remember it being very, very windy.
Yeah.
But Dude, it was incredible. I mean, you can kind of see it, but you kind of can't. But I'd say halfway through the picture where there's like that little island out there, that's how
Mhm.
far we kind of walked up along that. And same thing. I mean, you could see it just straight down. So it was beautiful. It was a beautiful place. And I would encourage, anybody if they have the opportunity and the resources to go there. Ireland for sure was one that um Emily and I agreed we would like to go back to, and I wish that we had appropriated more time to be in Ireland because their culture was awesome. The people were sweet. There was just a lot of really good food to eat, a lot of beers to drink, obviously, and it was just I don't know, it's cool culture. I think for sure Ireland and Iceland were up there on the list for us, no doubt.
So even though this was a really nice picture of you guys and obviously a great memory there, I think a
Yeah.
bigger memory that you and Emily will probably have is your time in Paris, France. So I've heard the story from Emily, but I want to hear the
Okay.
story straight from you. Tell me what was it like getting engaged to Emily, because I believe it involved some sandwiches and a random teenager. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I'll let you hit the floor for that one. What was that day like?
yeah. Yeah, so I had bought the engagement ring and I stuffed it in my hiking boot and I wrote like a little message on there because this was like 10 days into the trip. So I was sweating bullets, man. I wanted to get this thing off of me and give it to her. But this dress, we were backpacking for a month. And so we didn't have a lot of clothes. Everything that we had was in our bags. And so Emily, this was like the nice outfit that we both brought. Like my nice button down shirt, which obviously isn't like the nicest shirt, and Emily's dress that she had bought. And so her mom had asked me, when are you going to propose to her? And I told her the first night that she wears this dress. It could be
Mm.
in Iceland, it could be in Ireland, it could be in France, it could be in Hungary, Italy. I have no idea, but the first night that she wears it. So anyway, fast forward. Not surprisingly, the first night she wore it was in Paris. So I don't know if she had like a hunch that this might be going down or what, but um, she wears that, and that night, we had this backpack that we were bringing, and we would put all of like the most important things. I kind of messed with her a little bit because I think she was hopeful that it would happen, but I came out and I'm like, "Hey, do you think I could just wear this white tee? Like, this would be cool, right? Like, we don't. I mean, we're not like dressing up. We're not going out to eat or anything. And white tee's cool, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, wear whatever you want." And then I made a special point when we were in the hotel room. I said, "Hey, whatever, you know how like we always put the most important valuables like in this particular pocket. Go ahead and put your valuables in that pocket because I wanted her to know that like there was no ring in there."
Mhm.
And at the time, it was in my pocket. So
Nice.
anyway, we let's fast forward, grab a couple sandwiches, grab a couple bottles of Moet, and we go to obviously the Eiffel Tower. And she is a little we're the I forgot exactly how long we were in it, but on the train that we were going to the Eiffel Tower, we lost power. So then we were like kind of sweating bullets because we didn't know if we were going to make our particular time to go up the tower. And I'm like, holy smokes, now I'm going to get rushed into proposing and just a nightmare. So yeah, anyway, we get there and I'm trying to scope it out, look for somebody who, is not a scammer or like a
Mhm.
complete stranger. And I see this kid, he's wearing a UConn, University of Connecticut sweatshirt. And I'm like, hell yeah, that's the kid. It's like a 13-year-old kid with his mom coming to the Eiffel. That's it. So I walk over to the kid and I'm like, hey man, you want to make a quick $20? He like looks at me and then looks back at his mom. He's like, what? Who the hell is this kid? Who is this guy? This complete stranger. And so I tell him, I'm like, hey, like, trust me, I get it. I saw the UConn sweatshirt, and it's are you guys from Connecticut? And stoke up a little small talk, and I explained to him what I'm gonna do, which is, hey, I want you to take my phone and take a couple pictures of Emily and I, please, with the Eiffel Tower in the background. I'm gonna come down to like where you are, and I'm gonna look at the pictures on the phone, and then when I go back up, I'm gonna ask you, I'm gonna tell you they were kind of blurry, and then take a couple more, and when I go back up there, I'm gonna propose to her. and you got to take like as many pictures as possible.
And was this on the
So the
fly?
kid,
Like, were these
yo,
lines on the fly?
completely on the fly, completely on the
Wow.
fly. Yeah, completely on the fly. So the kid, oh man, I'll never forget it. He looks back to his mom and he like is in a state of like panic and he says, "Mom, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I'm like ready for this." I'm like, "Kid, don't do this to me. You know, I need you to do this." So I gave him the $20 and he crushed it. The funniest part about the whole situation is I'm looking down, like obviously we're looking towards the camera because he's taking pictures of us after we, do the engagement. And then I look down and his mom is in the background videotaping the whole thing of him taking pictures of us. Oh my gosh, I was dying. So that kid, man, I don't know. Yeah, that kid was a legend. I never got his number and his name and stuff, but I mean, I'm sure he'll talk about that for the rest of his life,
Oh, absolutely. What a
So,
memory. I mean, obviously a big memory for you guys, but what a cool
yes.
story for him to tell as well.
Oh, he crushed it. He crushed it. I don't think he was ready for it, but he couldn't. Yeah, I mean, he probably took 50 pictures, which was perfect, so that Emily could, pick out the one that she wanted and the ones that she didn't want. But it was perfect. It was awesome.
And wasn't just to clarify, while you're setting
Yeah,
this up with this kid from UConn, Emily was like
yeah.
looking for the tour guide, right? Because you guys were like
Oh
running a
yeah.
little bit behind.
Oh yeah. She was freaking out. Yeah, yeah, freaking out. So like she wasn't. We were in a state of panic because we booked the tickets so late that like they weren't available. So my mom booked us a like a tour guide to go up there. And of course, we missed the tour guide because we were late, and so it was just a cluster. Everything worked out, and we were able to go to the top, and we took a couple more pics and stuff. But oh yeah, man, it was not good. She was on like high alert, and she was thinking we weren't going to go to the top, which of course she wanted to do, and I wanted to do, but I was freaking out, wanting to get this ring off of me, and so anyway, it was all good. It was pretty high stress time though at that exact moment.
But you know what though? I think it's those kind of stories that like make it special, right? Because like yeah, you see the ones in the movies that like everything is smooth, like everything goes without a hitch, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
it's a slightly messy, slightly chaotic, but like everything just turns out well. Like for example, like you found a kid in the middle of Paris under the Eiffel Tower who was wearing a Yukon sweatshirt. Like the odds of
Yeah.
that happening are pretty
Dude,
astronomical, quite honestly,
yeah,
right?
well, yeah, I mean, it's again, it kind of goes back to one of the themes that you've been, reinforcing here, like the ability to just communicate with a complete and total stranger,
Hmm.
like had I not played hockey and had I not, done Special Olympics, I don't know, just you kind of go in there and what's the worst thing that happens? The kid says no, you know what I mean? Then you just go to the next stranger and you
Yeah,
just
try
hope that they
again.
don't take your $20 and your iPhone and run.
Yeah.
So I thought that the 12-year-old that probably had an older brother at UConn would be a good place to start, and he
Mhm.
crushed it. It was awesome.
Well,
But
congratulations to you and Emily. One
yeah,
on the
thanks, man.
successful engagement and also for the upcoming wedding as well. So
Yes,
congratulations to you
sir.
too. Mhm.
Thank you. Thank
All
you.
right, we have a little bit of time left, so I just want to ask one more question before I let you
Yeah, what's
go
up?
here.
Sure.
So last year was a big year for you guys, as for both you and Emily as well, because of a different reason, and it's a certain little furry critter named Maverick.
Yeah.
So you recently became well. How long have you had Maverick for at this point?
We got him in June, the day Emily picked me up after I finished step one, and we drove up to Illinois and picked that little fur ball up.
Nice. So about over half a year, or no, about 9 months at this point. So want to show everyone how cute the dog is. It's so cute.
He was born in
Yes.
Maverick. Yeah,
Yes.
he is a riot. Some days I want to boot his ass off of the balcony, and other days I can't get enough of him.
Yeah. So I kind of want to ask you about being a recently new dog dad here.
Yeah,
I
what's up?
guess it's like, what's in what ways has Maverick helped strengthen the relationship between you and Emily?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. It it most certainly can be stressful because it's when you get done with a 14-hour shift or an 18-hour shift that she just finished, the last thing that she wants to do is take them downstairs and outside to go to the bathroom or to feed them or whatever. She hasn't slept or something, so I would say having the conversations where like, hey, I'll pull a little more slack today if you can pull a little more slack tomorrow, like we got to work together to make this thing happen. But all in all, I mean, we were just watching a movie earlier today and she had said, I love our little family, and couldn't agree more, because it most certainly has brought us closer together, and it's given us something that we both, care a lot about outside of medicine, kind of like you're, beyond the books here. It's sometimes you just get so caught up in medicine and in medical school and, and working and stuff that you don't step back and say, well, what's it all about anyway? You know what I mean? Like, does it really matter if I can, get to, climb the academic ladder or some academic pursuit? Like what if that's your goal? Absolutely. But I think we both share, a feeling, we both come from pretty strong, family, like family ties and immediate families. Both of our families are pretty close. And so family is really important to both of us. And I would say Maverick's the first step in the right direction for both of us, and couldn't be a better idea, and some days it's tough, but I would say the advantages of having them far outweigh the disadvantages of, having them.
Absolutely. And how old? So Maverick's about over 6 months right now.
So he was born, I'm sure if Zach Lee listens to this and Isaac, they'll laugh, but he was born on 4/20.
Oh, lovely.
So yeah, right. So he is coming up on a year. Yeah, he's coming up on a year. But yeah, so we picked him up in June, but he was a little furball at the time. He's grown quite a bit now, but yeah, all good.
Yeah. Well, Matt, we did it. I think we have definitely crushed the goal here, proving that you're most definitely more than a medical student. I just want to thank you for joining me today and giving an awesome interview.
Yeah, I would say one last thing.
What's up?
You'll meet a lot of these guys when you come, to our wedding. Is I'm still playing hockey. So
okay.
And one little story I'll tell quickly.
Yeah, go for it.
When I interviewed, and we were just talking about this last night when I was with Zach and Isaac. One thing, I was interviewing at Wake Forest and for med school, and one of the interview questions that they had was, well, what is your backup plan if you don't get into medical school? And I don't know why. And this was probably too bold of me. I shouldn't have said this, but it like popped into my mind right away, and I'm like, should I say it? Should I not? And I didn't even like have a thought process. I just like said it. I said, well, actually, med school is like my backup plan. I wanted to be a professional hockey player and go to the NHL. And like, there were no masks at the time, so you should have seen this physician's jaw just like drop and go to the ground.
Oh my gosh.
But at the same time, it opened up a sweet conversation. Then we talked about hockey and, the Hurricane, like the Carolina Hurricanes, and it was awesome. So
is that your team, the Hurricanes?
Well, they were down in, North Carolina.
Oh, okay.
But now Buffalo Sabres all day,
Sabres.
baby.
Okay, Sabres. All right.
And the last thing I was going to say was you'll meet some of these guys. I'm still playing. I play for the Weasels. It's a men's league team. It's a men's league team up in Fishers. So a great bunch of dudes, and it's once a hockey player, always a hockey player kind of thing,
Well, go Weasels. Matt, thank you
Weasels, baby.
Yes, go Weasels. Thank you so much for joining me for this interview today. I really appreciate it. Everyone, thank Matt today for an awesome interview. Thank to his friends and his fiance as well for giving me some information to work off of here. And yeah, thanks for listening to today's episode. If you want to check out more episodes of Beyond the Books, check out YouTube and Spotify. Go ahead and search Beyond the Books Med. You can find all of the latest episodes there. So everyone, have a good night and have a great week.
You're listening to Beyond the Books with your host, Alex John.